This is your City Council Roundup, a recap of what's happening at City Hall with John Ongaro. The views expressed in this program are solely of those of the host and not necessarily those of the radio station or its partners.
Well, a little bit of a twist in the roundup this morning after last night's marathon City Council meeting. He still made it here in time. City Manager John Collin is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
At 12:11 last night, it was late. We did all right. It was, by the way, I lost the bets with everybody. I thought 12:30, 1 o'clock, but it came in under that. An important night last night. I'm going to start with this. Hey, so guess what? I have a problem with my flapper.
Okay. Wait, I know what you mean, but
yeah,
I think you better explain this to the
because
public.
if nobody stayed up till 11 o'clock, they wouldn't know what I was talking about. It was like the water department was speaking to my soul last night because I have a flapper problem on one of my toilets and it keeps running. And then there it was, the explanation of one of the biggest modernizations that we've gone through, which is the automatic, what's it called? Advanced metering infrastructure for your water meter that will send your water meter readings magically to City Hall. That is wonderful.
Yeah, and it's high time, quite frankly.
For sure.
We are, what's the stat? There are only 2 cities of over 100,000 that still do not have this in place yet,
Yeah.
Winnipeg and us.
Yeah.
Moving towards this makes all sorts of sense for all sorts of reasons. One of the councillors said it best last night. The most compelling reason to do this is it will provide a better service to the customers.
Yeah. All joking aside, there was a time I came home after being away for a weekend. The toilet was running all weekend. This will find those things. If there is some abnormalities in your water usage, it will alert you. This is an advanced system. And it's funny because we are so far behind. But to me, this is fascinating because it's exactly what we need. Pinhole leaks, all of those kinds of leaks. These things will flag the user to say, hey, you might have a problem. You're using a lot of water.
Yeah, and we gave a very simplistic example last night of the flapper in a toilet and how that could cause excess water use. And it does.
It does.
And it's actually quite shocking.
It's a lot.
How much extra water it causes. But picture for a moment that you're a senior in this city living on your own and there's a leak that you don't even notice.
That's right.
And it goes on for months.
Yeah.
Well, this new system will identify it. Either the customer will be able to identify it, but our control functions will also be able to identify it and reach out to the customer and say, hey, I think there's an issue here.
Yeah.
So that customer service enhancement is huge.
It's big. Let's talk about the cost of this. It is not cheap, but it is rate supported. This is not going to mean an increase in anything. This is something that the department is planning for and that will pay for itself over a number of years, right?
Yeah, it'll pay for itself over a number of years. It is rate supported, so there will be no increase to the taxes, but there will also be no increase to the user rates that it's not already foreseen within the plan. People are asking, how are you pulling this off?
Yeah.
Well, the short answer is we have to replace all the water meters anyway.
Right.
So a lot of the costs, when it's already factored into the plan that was created some years ago, and the rest of it we will manage internally.
They were also speaking to me last night talking about the ones that haven't been changed over. I have the original one in my house from 1968.
We're going to send you a bill.
Yeah, well, I get the bills, trust me, and I use a lot of water. But the installation is going to be really simple. And this is the plan for this to be done is how long?
Well, as discussed last night, we'll start the procurement process in 26. 2029 is the estimated completion date for all this. It is a multi-year project.
Yeah.
You can appreciate going into that many
50,000
households and making that change.
Yeah.
So about 3 years.
All right. So that was a big thing last night. Also last night, Delaney Arena is getting a bit of a facelift, which is kind of nice, but there is a good chunk of money coming from Northern Ontario Heritage Fund as well for this.
That's right. We applied. They said we're interested, but you have to do a few extra things for us to be really, really interested. Mm-hmm. So what we did last night is we went before council with those few extra things so that we have a better opportunity of securing that funding. I'm always all about spending other people's money instead of our own.
Absolutely. There is some big improvements. The building is old, but it is kind of a heritage site too for a lot of people that have grown up in that building. Some big changes, including renewed viewing in the stands, LED lighting, all kinds of things to kind of bring it up to modern times. So it's a great investment.
And a modern ice pad, which will not have the maintenance issues that the current ice pad has.
Yeah, I think somewhere in here that the old scoreboard is going to with the 1926 light bulbs in it.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, it's a nostalgia. Somebody needs to put that in their basement. All right. The other topic, of course, the biggest ticket of the night last night was the temporary village. This has been going on for well over a year. I wanted you to come in today because I thought it was important for the public to hear the setup to how we got to here. Your introduction to this was powerful because for a lot of people, and I know there was a lot of people watching last night because this is a big issue, but for a lot of people, they didn't understand the timelines and how we got here. This has been going on, as you pointed out last night. This started for looking for a site 14 months ago. This has been a colossal amount of work to get to this. But it doesn't end here. Last night's vote was 6-5 in favor of the Miles Street location after changing locations a couple of times. I want to talk to you about something that you did say last night about the perception of council been flip-flopping on this, and they haven't been. They haven't been changing their mind. It's just that some of the sites, the findings have changed. Can you talk about how through this process you learned things about the locations that were picked, but this one seemed to be the one that rated the highest?
Sure. And before I do, I just want to stress 2 points that you just touched on. First of all, it's been about 2 years in the making.
Right.
Because council made a conscious decision about 2 years ago to take a human rights-based approach to encampments.
Right.
So administration has been working on this since before my time in terms of, well, what does that mean? What are the options, et cetera? So I think that's an important point to hoist aboard. But to answer your question specifically, what was your question? Sorry, it was a long night last night.
It was a long question. No, where we are now doesn't mean that shovels are going around in the ground tomorrow. There's still some work because we've learned things along the way. Is there a chance that we're going to learn something about Miles Street at this point that's going to make it difficult to build?
I think the Miles Street recommendation is pretty solid in terms of the knowns and unknowns on the property. We've been looking at this property for quite some time.
Right.
It's not like Cam River that we looked at in shorter order,
right?
Or the Lakehead Regional Conservation Area lands or anything like that. The whole notion of changing our minds or council changing their minds, I think, is a bit disingenuous.
Okay.
Modern corporations have to lean forward, have to try new things. Otherwise, you never change. You're stagnant. And before you know it, everybody's asking the question, what's going on? Why are we so far behind the curve on everything? So you have to change. You have to keep up with the times. There will be unknowns when you do that. So you try certain things and then you adapt.
Right.
That's what modern corporations do. That's what high-performing corporations do. We need to have the system in place to realize if we're doing well or not. And if we're not, we adapt.
Yeah.
That's not changing your mind. That's being flexible, agile, and responsive to the situation.
Absolutely. And so last night, I believe it was Councillor Atreidi that said, and I thought you answered it well, is that she said, what if this doesn't work? What if this site doesn't work? And you said, well, like with everything, if council changes their mind, they can change their mind. You're able to do that, but we're going forward at this now. Now, it was voted through at committee of the whole last night. It doesn't mean it's done. It now needs to be ratified next week. Is there going to be any new information between now and then that may come forward to help councillors make their decision on the last vote?
Yeah, the short answer is I don't know what will transpire in the coming week. You make a very good point, and the public needs to understand this. There is no decision on the site location for the temporary village at this point in time.
Right.
There is no decision. What last night was a committee of the whole meeting where we get input from council, and council gives an indication of their support. Mm-hmm. The decision is next week at ratification, and that's when we will have the answer one way or the other that is required for this particular file. What's going to happen between now and then? Certainly, we will continue to provide information as it is requested from us. We are happy to continue to engage with members of the public on this. And we will also work hard to deal with, I'll call it misinformation, but lack of understanding is probably a more fair way to describe it. The lack of understanding of what this is and what this is not as we move forward.
All right, this was my next question, because this has been and you've only been here a little over a year, but this has been probably one of the most polarizing files in front of council for some time. There is a lot of commentary online, and at one point last week, I had to actually shut it down because there is a lot of misinformation. What's the city's job and role in trying to slow that down or make those changes? Do you have a communications plan of some kind that you're going to constantly answer to these things that are questions in the community, or will it just work itself out? Because a lot of councillors last night made comments about how many people have reached out to them about this. And it is a big deal. It is a big file. But what's the city's plan in trying to get around that misinformation?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'll say that it's not administration's role to enter into the debate online or in any other venue for that matter. But we do have an obligation to ensure that accurate information is made available. I think we've done that for the temporary village. Could there be more done? Yes, there could be. We've done it for the 10-part plan as well. We have infographics. We have detailed reports for people who are looking for detail. We have frequently asked questions. We have an entire section on our website explaining it all. I think in some cases, people either aren't aware that that information exists or haven't gone to it to truly understand it. We'll do more of that. We will make sure that the information is available. People have to engage and get all of the information. We even heard it last night in some of the deputations. I heard on the news that. Well, the news is a source, but it's not the only source of information.
Yeah.
And I think those who truly wish to be informed need to reach out and look at some of that additional information that's available.
There is a pile of information online, and it is a lot to go through, but not everybody is as engaged in this process as maybe somebody who watches every meeting. Because I was watching during those times of the infographics that I thought were fantastic. And the plans, the rest of the steps in the 10-point plan that this really hinges on. This is the start of the rest of the plan when it comes to encampments and those kinds of things. I thought it was very well laid out, but not everybody is as engaged as I am on a Monday night. And so getting that message out is difficult at times, isn't it?
It's difficult. And listen, I would love to make it simpler.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to explain this whole thing in like 3 sound bites.
Yeah.
The reality is it's an incredibly complex issue.
Yeah.
Every municipality in Canada as a whole is struggling with this. There's no easy fixes. There's no easy wins. It's complex. So it's an art to try to get such a complex issue down into 1 or 2 key points.
For sure.
And in this particular case, it's almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
There's more to this than meets the eye.
But it starts with council's original decision to choose a human rights approach to this. The next part about that is also very complicated, I think, and I apologize because I know there's not an easy answer for this either. A lot of the discussions last night hinged around security and the involvement of Thunder Bay Police, whether it be for moving people or otherwise. This is a voluntary step for those people to have housing into this village if they so choose. But this also triggers encampment rules that are part of this 10-point plan. But there are laws that say that you can or cannot move people. And that was debated quite a bit last night. And I was kind of confused as to, well, what's the answer? You can only do so much, right? There are provincial laws that prevent you from doing a lot of things. So you need to follow that. I know that's a long and very difficult one, but can you summarize the not being able to force somebody into these houses and what that means for the encampments later and the rules that you have in place?
So you're challenging me to take a very complex issue
and make it small.
And make it small.
We need a soundbite, yeah.
Well, the first soundbite I'll give you is we will follow the law.
Right.
We will follow the law.
Yep.
We need to understand in Canada we have the concept of common law. So it's the law that is written, and it is also the decisions of the courts form part of the body of law.
Right.
So it's the recent court decisions play into what we can and cannot do. That's the way Canada works.
Right. That's not our decision. That is a federal decision.
Well, that's
right?
correct. Yeah.
Right.
Again, we do common law here in this country. So the law in its most simplistic terms, and my city solicitor would probably cringe at how simplified I'm going to make this. The courts have basically said, if you want to manage encampments in your city, if you want to prevent encampments from being in certain areas, you must provide an indoor accessible option to the person that you wish to move.
Thank you for saying that, because that's why this is the first part of the plan.
That's correct.
Right? And that's the part that I think that people don't understand, because a lot of the commentary from the quote unquote experts online will just tell them to move because they're not No. There's a plan here, and the temporary village is part one, giving them an option. Once they have that option, you have the ability then to make rules as far as the other encampments in the city.
That's correct. And we have the ability to enforce those rules
Right.
as well at that point in time. We will always enforce rules, the law in this city with dignity and respect. But we will have the ability to do that. But we must have those indoor shelter options available first.
Yeah, perfectly explained. I think that's exactly the kind of messaging, simplified, that a lot of people need to hear because they don't understand the rest of the 10-part plan. So this is a very big file. Your staff has done an enormous amount of work. Counselors have done an enormous amount of work on this. And it seems to be finally getting to the point. If it is approved next week, there are still plans to have shovels in the ground, buildings up by February now, right? Is that correct?
We plan on having approximately half of the village up by December, and that's an aggressive timeline, but we want that because, newsflash, it's cold here.
It's cold, yeah. Get people
So
out.
we want to get about half the village up and running by December. The requirement is to have the project fully constructed by the end of February.
So we're still safe with the $2.8 million from the government.
Yes, we are.
So the last part about this is, and this has been a question a couple of times on our text line and otherwise, about who gets chosen. There is a process in which people are reached out to move to this temporary village, but we are also, very importantly, taking a slow approach to this, right? It's not 80 units, everybody moving in tomorrow. There's a process for this, right?
Yeah, you touch on again, two other important points. The first one is we are going to work with our partners to develop selection criteria for who are the best candidates for the temporary village. And we will always protect some capacity for emergency shelter requirements. So the partners we're talking about are the actual experts who are living this every day, that we work with almost every day, and get their input as to which individuals are best suited for the village. We're also going to work with the DSAB. The DSAB has a lot of experience at placing people in transitional or supportive housing. We want to take that experience and also use it for the shelter. So there will be selection criteria, guidelines, I think selection guidelines is probably a more accurate way of describing it, that we'll use to make determinations as to who is best positioned to go in there. But the other aspect is, no, we're not going from 0 to 80 overnight. This is all new. We do have to exercise some degree of caution as we move forward. So we are going to do a slow ramp up to make sure that as we open up the village and as we start to take occupants, we can manage it properly. Going from 0 to 80 is not smart. It's the equivalent of a restaurant that's opening up for the first time. They do what's called a soft launch.
That's right.
Well, we're going to do a soft launch.
Yeah, you said it very well. You surround yourself with people, and this is good leadership on behalf of the administration and even council. You surround yourself with people that know more than you, that are better at it than you, that are experts. And I think that's what we have to make sure that people understand. The city isn't making these decisions. You have a lot of other organizations who have relationships with these people that are living in tents right now, who know them, who are going to be able to manage this properly. I think that's important.
And we listen to them.
Yeah.
We don't take their input at face value, without challenge, without understanding, without validation. But at the end of the day, we need to recognize that there are experts out there who understand this and understand what the homeless need. And the first thing the homeless need is stability. They need to feel safe and secure. They need to have a roof over their heads. They need to have access to water, access to food, and access to hygiene. Any one of us would be dysfunctional if we didn't have that.
Right.
We need to provide that to the homeless. And once they are stable, then we can start addressing the root cause of their homelessness. And that's not us. That's not the municipality. That's all of the service providers, federal and provincial government. We'll stabilize the individuals. Then those who are responsible for it will help address the root causes.
That is a very important point, because it was brought up a couple of times last night by councillors asking deputants about, do you support temporary villages to help people, or do you support the village, or do you support the site? Which one would you pick? Would you pick a village over the? Everybody said the same thing. It's about helping people, and that is the approach. But at the same time, there was a couple of challenges last night about the option of living in a tent in January in Thunder Bay versus in a tiny home with heat and water and those things. The choice is obvious, and it is a way to help, and it's just something that we have to do in order to help people.
Well, I've got to tell you, with my Army background, I lived in a tent a lot in January, and they were really, really good tents.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, it's not fun.
It's
and
awful.
For us to expect that individuals will have the mental energy to deal with their root cause challenges when they're trying to survive is foolhardy.
That is perfectly said, and we will end it with that. City Manager John Collin, a very busy night last night and a late one, and so now you can go back to work and start all over again today. It's going to be a busy week for your team leading into next week's ratification. So again, like the city manager said, not a firm decision last night, just a way to move forward. Ratification happens on Monday night, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. City Manager John Collin in today's special City Council Roundup. Next meeting next Monday night. We'll be back on Tuesday morning.